Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku inherited the mythic beast mark. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The heat was the first thing Izuku Midoriya noticed every morning. It wasn't the warmth of the sun filtering through his All Might-themed curtains, nor was it the lingering coziness of his blankets. It was a deep, subdermal heat, radiating from the center of his spine and spreading across his shoulder blades. It felt like a sunburn that never healed, or perhaps a fever that was localized entirely to the expanse of his upper back. For 10 years, it had just been an itch he couldn't scratch. A reminder of his defect. Izuku sat up in bed, groaning as he rolled his shoulders. The fabric of his pajama shirt rubbed against the sensitive skin, sending a familiar phantom prickle through his nervous system. He reached back, his fingers tracing the raised, uneven texture of the skin there. He didn't need a mirror to know what it looked like. He had memorized the pattern years ago. It looked like a chaotic splash of dark red ink, or perhaps a jagged scar from a wound he didn't remember receiving. It sprawled from his neck down to the middle of his spine, branching out toward his shoulders in aggressive, tribal-like serrations. Just a birthmark, the doctor had said. A vascular anomaly. Ugly, but harmless. Harmless. Izuku sighed, swinging his legs out of bed. He wished he was harmless. To be harmless implied you had the potential to be harmful, but chose not to be. Izuku was simply nothing. He was a Deku. He went through the motions of his morning routine with the practiced lethargy of someone who knew exactly how their day was going to go. Brush teeth. Wash face. Stare at the reflection in the mirror, and try to find a spark of power in green eyes that looked increasingly tired. Put on the Gakurin uniform. Ignore the itch on his back. Izuku! Breakfast is ready. Coming, Mom! He forced a smile onto his face before leaving his room. It was a mask he wore to keep Inko Midoriya from crying, and lately, the mask was getting heavy. Aldera Junior High was a place where dreams went to die, specifically Izuku's. The classroom was a chaotic symphony of prepubescent posturing and quirk displays. Fingers extended into telescoping wood, eyeballs floated out of sockets, and minor telekinesis sent pencils spinning. Amidst the noise, Izuku sat at his desk, head down, scribbling furiously into hero analysis for the future number 13. So, as third-year students, it's time to think seriously about your futures and what you want to do with your lives, the teacher announced, standing at the podium with a stack of papers. The class quieted down, though the energy in the room remained palpable. I could pass out these career aptitude tests, the teacher continued, a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. He threw the papers into the air. But why bother? I know you all want to go to the hero track. The room exploded. Quirks fired off in a celebratory display of individuality. Izuku shrank into his shoulders, raising his hand timidly, purely out of habit. Yes, you've all got wonderful quirks, the teacher said, waving a hand. But remember, using powers in school is against the rules. Hey, teach! The voice cut through the noise like a whip crack. Katsuki Bakugo sat with his feet on his desk, leaning back with an arrogance that was almost impressive if it wasn't so terrifying. Don't lump me in with these extras, Bakugo scoffed, a cruel grin plastered on his face. I'm not gonna be stuck at the bottom of the barrel with the rest of these rejects. The class erupted in outrage, but Bakugo ignored them, his red eyes gleaming. I aced the mock exam. I'm the only one here with the stuff to go to UA High. I'm gonna surpass All Might and become the top hero. Oh, that's right, the teacher mused, looking at his clipboard. Bakugo, you're aiming for UA, the class murmured in awe. UA was the holy grail. It was a fortress of excellence, and... The teacher paused, his eyes sliding over to the back of the room, landing on a mess of green curls. Midoriya, didn't you want to go to UA too? Silence. It wasn't a peaceful silence. It was a vacuum. The air left the room, sucked out by the collective intake of breath from 30 students. Then, the explosion. Laughter. Midoriya? No way. You can't get into the hero course just by studying. They got rid of that rule, but still, without a quirk? Izuku stood up, his hands shaking as they gripped the desk. They removed the rule. There's no precedent, but... Boom. Izuku was thrown backward as his desk exploded. He hit the floor hard, the breath knocked out of him. Smoke curled from Bakugo's palm as the blonde loomed over him, smoke tendrils dancing around his fingers. "Hey, Deku!" Bakugo growled, his voice dropping an octave. "You're below the rejects. You're quirkless. How can you even stand in the same ring as me?" Izuku scrambled back until his back hit the wall. The heat on his spine flared, a sharp spike of temperature that made him wince. It wasn't fear, or at least, not entirely. It was a reaction. Whenever Bakugo got close, whenever violence was imminent, the mark on his back burned hotter. "Kaken, it's not like I'm trying to compete with you," Izuku stammered, waving his hands frantically. It's been my dream since I was little. And I won't know unless I try." "Try?" Bakugo shouted, small explosions popping in his palms. "Try what? Try to die in the entrance exam? What can you do, you pebble?" The class laughed again. Izuku looked down, biting his lip. The heat on his back was throbbing now, pulsing in time with his erratic heartbeat. Thump thump. Burn. Thump thump. Burn. The rest of the day was a blur of side glances and whispers. When the final bell rang, Izuku packed his bag quickly, desperate to escape. He picked up his notebook, clutching it to his chest like a shield. "We're not done talking, Deku." Bakugo snatched the notebook from Izuku's hands before he could react. "Hero analysis for the future?" Bakugo read the cover, his face twisting into a sneer. "Seriously? You're still doing this crap? Give it back, Kaken!" Bakugo slammed the notebook between his palms. Boom! "Ah!" Izuku cried out. Bakugo tossed the charred, smoking notebook out the open window. Izuku watched it fall, his heart sinking into his stomach. "Most top-tier heroes have stories about them from their school days," Bakugo said, walking closer, invading Izuku's personal space. He placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder. It was hot, smoking, threatening to burn the fabric. "I want my origin story to be pristine. I don't want people thinking I went to school with a loser who thought he could make it." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Here's a word of advice, nerd. Don't apply to UA." Bakugo turned to leave, his lackeys trailing behind him. At the door, he paused and looked back over his shoulder. "If you want to be a hero that badly, there's a quick way to do it. Believe that you'll be born with a quirk in your next life, and take a swan dive off the roof." Izuku froze. The cruelty of the statement hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. He turned, anger flashing in his eyes, his fists clenched. "What?" Bakugo snapped, his palms crackling. Izuku flinched. The anger died, replaced by the conditioned response of submission. He said nothing. As the door slid shut, leaving him alone in the golden light of the sunset, Izuku felt the burning sensation on his back intensify. It was painful now. A searing, dry heat. He reached back and scratched at his shirt, his nails digging in hard enough to leave white lines on the fabric. Why? Why was he the only one? He retrieved his notebook from the koi pond. The fish were nipping at the burned edges. "Stupid Kaken," Izuku muttered, shaking the water off the pages. "If I really jumped, that would be instigation of suicide. Think before you speak." He walked aimlessly, his feet dragging against the pavement. He didn't want to go home yet. If he went home, his mom would ask about school, and he was a terrible liar. He found himself walking toward the underpass, a shortcut that cut through the district. The tunnel was dark, the shadows stretching long and deep. As he walked, his mind drifted back to that day. The day the world ended, the doctor's office. The smell of antiseptic. The X-ray clipped to the light board. "You should give up, kid." The words had been so casual. Dr. Tsubasa sat in his chair, leaning back, tapping a pen against his knee. "It's not just the toe joint," the doctor had explained, gesturing to the images. "Though that is the primary indicator. It's this marking on his back. We call it a neoatavistic nevus. It's a rare genetic throwback. In the pre-quirk era, this might have just been a birthmark. But in our studies, children born with this specific marking are devoid of quirk factors. It's like his body spent so much energy creating this decoration that it forgot to give him a power decoration. Izuku remembered sitting in the dark of the computer room later that night, watching All Might's debut video for the 1000th time. The fearless smile. The strength. He remembered his mother hugging him, crying, apologizing. "I'm sorry, Izuku. I'm so sorry." That wasn't what he wanted to hear. He wanted her to say that he could still do it. Izuku shook his head, clearing the memory. He was in the middle of the tunnel now. The air was cool, damp, and smelled vaguely of sewage. The heat on his back spiked. It wasn't a gradual rise this time. It was a sudden, searing jolt, like a hot poker pressed between his shoulder blades. Izuku gasped, arching his back, dropping his notebook. "What the?" A wet, slurping sound echoed behind him. A medium-sized invisibility cloak. Izuku whipped around. Rising from the manhole cover was an undulating mass of dark green sludge. Two large, manic eyes floated in the viscosity, staring hungrily at him. "You'll do nicely," the liquid mass gurgled. Izuku didn't think. He couldn't. The fear seized his legs, freezing him in place. The villain lunged. It was like being hit by a tidal wave of rotting gelatin. The sludge enveloped him instantly, forcing its way into his mouth and nose. Izuku gagged, his hands clawing uselessly at the fluid. It was heavy, suffocating, and tasted of oil and decay. "Don't struggle, kid," the villain whispered, his voice vibrating directly into Izuku's ear. "It'll only hurt for a minute. I just need to hide inside you for a while. I'm running from someone dangerous. I can't breathe." Izuku's vision began to blur. White spots danced at the edges of his sight. His lungs burned, screaming for oxygen. He tried to grab the sludge, but his fingers slipped right through. "Is this it?" "That's it," the villain cooed. "Just let go." "Am I going to die here?" "No one knows where I am. Mom won't know. I'll just disappear. Dying without ever doing anything. Dying as a Deku." His strength was fading. His arms fell to his sides. The darkness of the tunnel seemed to be closing in, merging with the darkness in his mind. "Give up." The voice sounded like the doctor. Like Bakugo. Like his mother. "Give up." But then, another voice spoke. It didn't speak in words. It spoke in sensation. Deep within the core of his being, beneath the fear, beneath the sadness, beneath the years of conditioned weakness, something snapped. The burning on his back exploded. It wasn't just heat anymore. It was energy. Raw, volatile, ancient energy. It surged from the mark on his back, flooding his nervous system like liquid fire. It felt like his blood had been replaced with gasoline, and someone had just lit a match. "No." The thought wasn't a plea. It was a command. Thump. His heart beat. Not the frantic flutter of a dying bird, but a heavy, resonant drumbeat that shook his entire ribcage. Thump. The sludge villain paused. "What?" Inside the suffocating darkness, Izuku's eyes snapped open. They were no longer the soft, forest green of a gentle boy. They were luminous. They glowed with a piercing, predatory crimson light, the pupils constricting into razor-thin vertical slits. The mark on his back, hidden beneath his uniform, ignited. The red tribal patterns flared with bioluminescent light, burning through the fabric of his gakuren. The black jacket smoked and frayed as the energy poured off him. "What is this heat?" the villain hissed, recoiled slightly. "You, get off." Izuku didn't try to pull the sludge off. He roared. It wasn't a scream. A scream uses air. Izuku had no air. This sound came from the vibration of his very bones, a guttural, subharmonic growl that escalated into a terrifying roar. Gra-wa! The sound wave shattered the windows of the nearby buildings. The sludge villain shrieked as the vibrations disrupted his cohesion. Izuku's hands shot up. His fingers, usually calloused from holding a pen, contorted. His nails thickened, lengthened, and sharpened into dark, obsidian-like claws. The muscles in his forearms swelled, ripping the sleeves of his uniform. "Pray." The word flashed across his mind in bold, red letters. Izuku didn't think about strategy. He didn't think about laws. He acted on pure, unadulterated instinct. He slashed. His right hand moved with speed that created a sonic boom within the tunnel. The claws tore through the sludge villain's fluid body, not just displacing the liquid, but creating a pressure wave that scattered the villain's mass instantly. "Arg!" The villain cried out, his eye flying wide as his body was forcibly separated. Izuku fell to his hands and knees, gasping for air. Oxygen rushed into his lungs, but it didn't bring relief. It brought fuel. The oxygen fed the fire. He looked up. The villain was trying to reform, blobs of slime creeping together in terror. What are you? The villain stammered. Izuku stood up. His posture was wrong. He was hunched low, his spine curved, his arms hanging loose and heavy. His legs were bent, ready to spring. The red light from the mark on his back pulsed rhythmically, casting long, monstrous shadows against the tunnel walls. He turned his head. The glowing red slit pupils locked onto the villain's eye. Izuku bared his teeth. His canines had elongated, interlocking like a trap. A low growl rumbled in his chest, continuous and threatening, like an idling engine of a heavy machine. Hunt! Stay back! The villain lashed out, sending a tendril of slime toward Izuku like a whip. Izuku didn't block. He didn't dodge in the traditional sense. He moved. 1 second he was standing there, the next he was a blur. He dropped to all fours, moving with the unnatural, terrifying agility of a wolf. He went under the whip, his body scraping the pavement, and launched himself upward. He slammed into the reforming mass of the villain, pinning the sludge against the concrete ceiling of the tunnel with sheer physical force. The concrete cracked. Get off! Get off! The villain panicked, trying to suffocate him again. Izuku snarled and bit down. He didn't bite the slime to eat it. He bit the air, snapping his jaws with enough force that the shockwave disrupted the slime near his face. He slashed again with his claws, his movements frantic, brutal, and efficient. Tear. Rend. Break. He was drowning in the sensation. The smell of the sewage was overpowering, distinct notes of sulfur, rot, and fear filling his nose. He could hear the villain's heart, or whatever nucleus kept him together, pulsing frantically. He wanted to silence it. He raised his hand for a final, crushing blow. His claws glowed with a faint red aura, the energy from his back channeling into his fingertips. Texas. Smash! The voice was louder than the roar. A massive gust of wind pressure slammed into the tunnel from the entrance. It hit both Izuku and the villain like a freight train. The slime was blown apart completely, splattered against the walls in 1,000 harmless droplets. Izuku was thrown backward, tumbling end over end until he hit the ground, skidding to a halt. He scrambled to his feet instantly, hissing, his claws digging into the asphalt. He whipped his head toward the source of the attack, eyes glowing, ready to kill whatever had dared to interrupt the hunt. Standing at the mouth of the tunnel, illuminated by the dying light of the sun, was a towering figure. Blonde hair swept back in 2 distinct tufts. Muscles that seemed carved from marble. A smile that usually brought hope, but now wavered with confusion. I am here? All Might announced, though the catchphrase ended as a question. The symbol of peace lowered his fist, smoke rising from his knuckles. He looked at the scattered villain, then his eyes landed on the boy. He saw the tattered black uniform. He saw the blood-red tribal markings glowing through the shredded fabric of the boy's back. He saw the claws, and he saw the eyes. Those weren't the eyes of a victim. They were the eyes of an apex predator cornered in the dark. Young man? All Might took a step forward, his hand raised in a placating gesture. Izuku flinched. The movement triggered a reaction. He dropped lower, a growl ripping from his throat. The muscles in his legs coiled, ready to lunge at the number 1 hero. Threat. Rival. Dominate. Easy now, All Might said, his voice unusually soft, losing the booming hero persona. He sensed the danger. This wasn't a villain, this was a frightened animal. It's okay. The danger is gone. The danger is gone? The words filtered through the red haze in Izuku's mind. All Might? The glowing red patterns on Izuku's back flickered. The overwhelming heat began to recede, replaced by a cold, crushing exhaustion. Izuku blinked. The vertical slits in his pupils widened, trembling as they fought to return to roundness. The claws on his fingers retracted, the skin smoothing over, leaving his hands bruised and bloody. The adrenaline crash was instantaneous. The strength evaporated from his limbs. The beast retreated into the cage of his subconscious, leaving a confused, terrified 14-year-old boy standing in the wreckage. Izuku looked at his hands. They were shaking violently. He looked at the slime splattered on the walls. He looked at All Might. All Might? Izuku whispered, his voice hoarse, as if he had been screaming for hours. I am here, All Might repeated, gently this time. Izuku's knees gave out. Izuku's eyes rolled back into his head. I didn't die? Darkness overtook him before he hit the ground. Hey! Hey! Wake up! A light slapping on his cheek. Izuku groaned, his head swimming. The world came into focus slowly. He was lying on the pavement. The sky above was a bruised purple. Twilight had set in. Thank goodness! Izuku sat up violently, gasping. The slime! The tunnel! Calm down, citizen! Izuku froze. He looked up. All Might was standing over him, casting a long shadow. The hero was striking a pose, hands on his hips, teeth sparkling. I apologize for getting you caught up in my justice ing. All Might laughed, a boisterous sound that echoed in the quiet street. I usually clean up this city, but I was a bit distracted. But fear not, I captured the evildoer. He held up 2 plastic soda bottles filled with green sludge. Izuku stared. His brain was rebooting. All Might. Real. In person. But then, a sharper memory cut through the hero worship. The heat. The roar. The feeling of tearing something apart. Izuku scrambled to feel his back. His shirt was in tatters. The skin felt tender, hot to the touch, but the burning agony was gone. He looked at his hands. His nails were normal. Short, bitten down from anxiety. Was it a dream? Young man, All Might said, his voice dropping slightly. He wasn't smiling as widely now. He was looking at Izuku with a piercing, analytical gaze. Are you injured? That was quite a display back there. Izuku swallowed hard. I don't know what happened. I couldn't breathe and then, your quirk manifested? All Might suggested, though his tone implied he knew it was more complicated than that. Stress-induced awakening is rare at your age, but not unheard of. I don't have a quirk, Izuku whispered, looking down at his knees. I'm quirkless. All Might paused. The silence stretched thin. Quirkless? All Might repeated. He looked at the shredded remains of the boy's shirt, the exposed skin where the red marks had faded into dull, scar-like lines. Young man, you tore apart a fluid-based villain with your bare hands. You generated a roar that cracked the tunnel ceiling. Izuku looked up, tears welling in his eyes. I don't know. I got so scared, and then I got so angry. And there was this voice, or not a voice, but a feeling. It wanted to kill him. Izuku wrapped his arms around himself, shivering. I wanted to kill him. All Might's expression softened. He crouched down, bringing himself to eye level with Izuku. But you didn't, All Might said. And you're safe. I need to go. All Might stood up abruptly, coughing slightly. He turned away to hide the trickle of blood at the corner of his mouth. His time limit was screaming at him. I must take this villain to the police. Stay safe, young man. And, perhaps see a doctor about that back of yours. Wait. Izuku scrambled to his feet. He couldn't let him leave. Not yet. He had the question. The question that had burned in him longer than the mark on his back. All Might. Wait. All Might was already crouching to jump. No time. A pro is always fighting time and evil. Can I become a hero even if I have a monster inside me? The question stopped All Might. He didn't jump. He slowly lowered his heels back to the ground. Izuku stood there, trembling, tears streaming down his face. Everyone told me I was quirkless, Izuku cried, his voice cracking. Everyone told me to give up. But today, something woke up. And it wasn't heroic. It was scary. It was violent. It felt like a beast. He clutched his chest. Can someone like that, can someone who feels like a predator, ever save people with a smile? Like you? All Might turned around. He looked at the boy, messy green hair, tattered clothes, tears mixing with grime. For a moment, All Might didn't see a fan. He saw himself, years ago, quirkless and desperate. But he also saw something else. He saw the raw, untamed power that had flared in that tunnel. He had seen many quirks. He had seen strength, fire, ice, and gravity. But what he saw in this boy was primal. It was the top of the food chain, and he saw the fear in the boy's eyes. The fear of his own nature. A hero isn't someone without fear, All Might thought. A hero is someone who masters it. All Might sighed, and suddenly, steam began to pour off his body. Young man, All Might said, his voice deflating along with his muscles. I am not just fighting time. Poof, the smoke cleared. Standing there was not the golden symbol of peace, but a skeletal, emaciated man with hollow eyes and sharp angles. Izuku screamed. What? An imposter? Where did All Might go? I assure you, I am All Might, the skeleton sighed, blood dripping from his mouth. You know how guys at the pool suck in their guts? It's like that. No way. All Might sat down on the guardrail, looking weary. He lifted his shirt, revealing the gruesome, crater-like scar on his side. 5 years ago, a villain did this to me, All Might explained, watching Izuku's face pale. Respiratory system destroyed. Stomach removed. I can only do hero work for about 3 hours a day, the rest of the time. I look like this. 5 years ago? Toxic chainsaw? Izuku asked, his otaku brain taking over automatically. You know your stuff. But no. This fight wasn't made public. All Might looked at the scar. I smiled to trick the fear inside me, kid. And to trick the world. The symbol of peace cannot be daunted. He looked up at Izuku. You asked if you can be a hero with a monster inside you. All Might pointed a bony finger at Izuku's chest. Power is not good or evil, young man. It is simply power. My power, one for all, is a torch passed down to save people. But if used wrong, it could level cities. He stood up and walked over to Izuku. That thing in the tunnel? That wasn't a villain. That was you fighting to survive. It was brutal, yes. It was scary. But it saved your life. All Might placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder. The world is filled with monsters, kid. Real ones. Villains who kill for sport. Villains who want to tear society apart. All Might's blue eyes bore into Izuku's. Sometimes, to fight monsters, we need a beast of our own. The question isn't whether you have a monster inside you. The question is, who is holding the leash? Izuku stared, his breath hitching. Izuku wiped his eyes. I don't know if I can control it. It felt overwhelming. Then we train, All Might said firmly. We train your body to handle the stress. We train your mind to stay in the driver's seat. You said you were quirkless? I was supposed to be. Well, fate seems to have a different plan, All Might said, a small, genuine smile appearing on his skeletal face. That mark on your back. I've read about it in old textbooks. Myths mostly, the mythic beast mark. An apex predator gene. It hasn't been seen in generations because the users usually lose their minds. Izuku stiffened. Lose their minds? Usually, All Might stressed. But they didn't have me. All Might stood up straight, expanding back into his muscular form for just a second, wincing as he did. I was looking for a successor, All Might muttered, mostly to himself. Someone to inherit my power. But perhaps what the world needs right now isn't another Superman. He looked at Izuku, seeing the potential. The raw, savage potential that could either save the world or eat it alive. Young Midoriya, was it? Yes, sir. Izuku Midoriya. You want to be a hero? Izuku nodded frantically. More than anything, All Might grinned. Then get ready for hell, kid. We're going to tame that beast. And when we're done, you're going to be the king of the jungle. Izuku looked at his hands again. He imagined the claws. He imagined the red eyes. He felt the faint, simmering heat on his back, no longer an itch, but a waiting engine. For the first time in his life, Izuku didn't feel empty. He felt full. Dangerously, terrifyingly full. He clenched his fist. Yes, sir! The world was too loud. That was the first coherent thought Izuku had as he drifted back to consciousness. It wasn't just the beeping of the heart monitor, which sounded like a jackhammer against his eardrums, or the hum of the fluorescent lights, which whined like a dying mosquito. It was everything. He could hear the squeak of rubber saws on linoleum 3 rooms away. He could hear the rushing of water in the pipes inside the walls. He could hear the frantic, rabbit-fast heartbeat of the woman sitting next to his bed. "Mom?" His voice was a croak, dry and scratchy. The heartbeat beside him skipped a beat. "Izuku! Oh, my baby! You're awake!" Inko Midoriya was on him instantly, her tears flowing freely. Her hands hovered over him, terrified to touch, as if he were made of glass, or perhaps, something volatile that might explode. Izuku blinked, trying to adjust his eyes. The hospital room was stark white. It smelled of antiseptic, rubbing alcohol, and underneath that, the stale scent of dried sweat and fear. The smells were distinct, separated into layers like a diagram in a textbook. He tried to sit up, but a sharp stiffness in his spine stopped him. He was bandaged heavily around his torso. "Don't move, sweetie," Inko sobbed, dabbing her eyes with a handkerchief. "The doctor said your body underwent a massive metabolic shock. You've been asleep for 2 days. 2 days?" Izuku rasped. The door slid open with a soft hiss. A tall man in a white coat walked in. He wasn't the family doctor, old Dr. Tsubasa. This man was younger, with sharp features and glasses that caught the light. He held a clipboard, his expression unreadable. "Ah, young Midoriya is with us," the doctor said. His voice was calm, clinical. "I am Dr. Kenji. I specialize in atavistic and mutation-type quirk genetics." Izuku looked at the doctor. He could smell the man's cologne, sandalwood and mint, and the faint metallic tang of coffee on his breath. "Doctor," Inko stammered, standing up. "Please tell us what's happening." "My son, he was quirkless." "We were told he was quirkless." Dr. Kenji adjusted his glasses. He didn't look at Inko. He looked directly at Izuku. "He was never quirkless, Mrs. Midoriya. He was dormant." The doctor tapped the clipboard. "In the dawn of the quirk era, before the classifications of emitter, transformation, and heteromorphic were standardized, there were chaotic mutations. Some were weak. Some were godlike. And some were problematic." Dr. Kenji pulled up a holographic display from a projector on the bedside table. It showed a scan of Izuku's back. The red tribal markings were glowing faintly in the image. "This isn't just a birthmark," Dr. Kenji explained. "It is an external nervous system interface. We call it the Mythic beast mark. It is an incredibly ancient genetic trait, thought to be extinct for at least 3 generations. "Extinct?" Izuku whispered. "Suppressed," the doctor corrected. "Nature has a way of burying things that are too dangerous for the host. You see, Midoriya, most animal-type quirks, like frog or dog, give you the attributes of the animal while retaining your human mind. The Mythic beast mark is different. It doesn't just give you the attributes. It gives you the instincts." The doctor swiped the screen, showing a graph of Izuku's brain activity during the slime incident. The red lines spiked off the charts. Adrenaline, cortisol, dopamine. When the mark activates, your brain is flooded with a cocktail of chemicals designed for one thing: survival. It suppresses the prefrontal cortex, the part of you that makes logic, understands laws, and feels empathy, and supercharges the amygdala. Inko gasped, covering her mouth. What does that mean?" Dr. Kenji lowered the clipboard. His face was grave. "It means, Mrs. Midoriya, that your son is carrying a predator on his back. When he feels threatened, or angry, or terrified, he risks entering a feral state. In historical cases of this quirk, users often lost the ability to distinguish friend from foe. They became, effectively, monsters." The word hung in the air. "Monster." Izuku looked down at his hands. They looked normal now. No claws. No fur. But he could feel it. The heat on his back was a low simmer, like coals in a dying fire. It was waiting. "Is there a cure?" Inko asked, her voice trembling. "There is no cure for a quirk," Dr. Kenji said. "We can prescribe heavy sedatives. We can recommend he avoid stress. But effectively, he will have to live with this. I strongly recommend against him pursuing any high-stress career paths. Hero work, for example, would be catastrophically dangerous. Not just for him, but for everyone around him." The doctor's words were like nails in a coffin. "I'll leave you to rest." The doctor left. Inko collapsed into the chair, weeping silently. Izuku stared at the white ceiling. Dangerous. Monster. Give up. It was the same song, just a different tune. Before, he was too weak to be a hero. Now, he was too dangerous. The result was the same. Mom, Izuku said softly. Inko looked up, her eyes red. I'm sorry, he whispered. No, Izuku, don't apologize. She grabbed his hand. It's okay. We'll figure it out. You can be a librarian. Or a police analyst. You're so smart. You don't have to. She couldn't finish the sentence. You don't have to be a hero. Izuku turned his head away, looking out the window at the blue sky. It looked so far away. 2 days later, Izuku was discharged. He was given a prescription for potent mood stabilizers and a strict warning to keep his heart rate down. He walked home with his mother, the silence between them heavy. When they reached their apartment complex, Inko fussed over him, making him tea and katsudan, trying to normalize a situation that was fundamentally broken. That evening, Izuku sat on the swing set at the neighborhood park. It was the same park where he used to play hero as a kid. He dragged his feet in the sand, creating meaningless patterns. The mood stabilizers made him feel foggy. They dulled the heat on his back, but they also dulled his thoughts. He felt trapped in cotton. Young Midoriya. The voice came from the shadows of the trees. Izuku looked up. A skinny, skeletal figure stepped out from the darkness. He wore a baggy yellow suit that hung off his bony frame like clothes on a scarecrow. All Might? Izuku gasped, jumping off the swing. In the flesh, the hero rasped. He coughed, a wet, hacking sound, and wiped his mouth. Or what's left of it. What are you doing here? Did you find the slime villain? Did the police ask about me? Izuku fired off the questions nervously. The villain is in custody, All Might said, walking over to lean against the swing set pole. And the police? Well, I filed the report. I may have omitted the part about you nearly eating the suspect. Izuku flinched. I didn't. I wasn't going to eat him. Were you? All Might asked gently. Izuku opened his mouth, then closed it. He remembered the hunger. Not a hunger for food, but a hunger to end the threat. To crush. To tear. I don't know, Izuku whispered. The doctor said, he said I'm dangerous. He said my brain shuts down. Doctors look at charts, kid. They don't look at hearts. All Might sighed, looking up at the moon. I did some digging. The mythic beast mark. Nasty business. The last recorded user was a vigilante in the chaotic era known as Grendel. He leveled 3 city blocks fighting a villain. Izuku wrapped his arms around himself. See? I can't be a hero. I'm just a time bomb. And yet, All Might said, turning his hollow eyes onto Izuku. When the slime villain had you, when you broke free, you didn't run. Your instinct, the beast's instinct, should have been self-preservation. Flight. Escape the trap. All Might pointed a finger at him. But you stayed. You attacked the villain to stop him. Even in the grip of a feral rage deep down, your core desire was to protect. All Might stepped closer. I saw you that day. I saw a boy who was terrified, shaking in his boots, facing a monster. And I saw that boy become the monster to save himself. But the moment I arrived, the moment you recognized the hero, you stopped. All Might knelt down, putting himself at eye level with Izuku. A wild animal doesn't stop because a hero shows up. A wild animal runs or attacks. You stopped because Izuku Midoriya was still in there, holding the leash. Tears pricked Izuku's eyes. But barely. It took everything I had just to not attack you. Strength isn't about never struggling, All Might said. It's about struggling and winning. He stood up, striking a weak version of his pose. I have a proposal for you, young Midoriya. A proposal? I am looking for a successor. All Might dropped the bomb casually. Someone to inherit my will. Not my power. You have plenty of your own, and quite frankly, if I gave you mine on top of that mark, you'd probably explode. All Might chuckled darkly. No. I want to train you. I want to teach you how to build a cage for that beast, and how to be the one who holds the key. I want to make you the next symbol of peace, not a symbol of raw power, but a symbol of victory over fear. Izuku stared. The wind rustled the leaves overhead. You want to train me? To be a hero? I want to train you to be the apex, All Might corrected. UA High's entrance exam is in 10 months. If you listen to me, if you work harder than you've ever worked in your life, you won't just pass. You'll dominate. All Might extended a bony hand. So, what do you say? Do you want to be a victim of your biology? Or do you want to be a hero? Izuku looked at the hand. He felt the heat on his back. It wasn't painful this time. It felt like an engine revving up. He wiped his tears and grasped All Might's hand. I'll do it. Dagoba Municipal Beach Park. It was a garbage dump. Mountains of trash, rusted appliances, tires, and driftwood stretched as far as the eye could see. The smell was atrocious, rotting rubber and salty decay. This, All Might announced, standing atop a broken refrigerator, is your training ground. Izuku stood in his tracksuit, looking at the mess. We're cleaning the beach? We are building a vessel, All Might declared, shifting into his muscular form for emphasis. Your body is weak, young Midoriya. The mark puts a strain on your muscles and bones that you cannot handle. If you use more than 10% of that power right now, you'll snap your limbs like twigs. To house the beast, you must build the cage, right? So I just haul this stuff? Izuku grabbed a tire. No! All Might chopped him on the head. Ouch. This isn't just about lifting. All Might deflated, coughing. Listen closely. Your quirk is tied to instinct. Rage. Adrenaline. If you just lift heavy things, you're just training your muscles. We need to train your mind. All Might pointed to a precariously stacked pile of old microwaves and radios. You must move that pile from here to the truck, without toppling it. What? That's physics-defying. Exactly, All Might grinned. You have to be calm. Precise. If you get frustrated, the heat on your back will rise. If the heat rises, your fine motor control vanishes, and you crush the microwaves. You must learn to perform heavy labor while maintaining a state of zen. And so, the hell began. Month 1 to 3, the detox. The first 3 months were physical torture. Izuku wasn't allowed to use his quirk at all. He ran through sand, lifted safes, and dragged truck tires. But the mental aspect was harder. All Might had him meditate for an hour before and after every session. Visualize the mark, All Might instructed as Izuku sat in the lotus position on a pile of trash, the ocean waves crashing nearby. Don't push it down. Don't fear it. Look at it. In his mind Izuku saw it. A massive, shadowed wolf-like creature with burning red eyes, pacing behind the bars of a cage in his chest. It was always angry. Always hungry. It wants to get out, Izuku thought, sweat pouring down his face. Then acknowledge it, All Might's voice guided him. Tell it, not yet. Month 4, the slip. It happened on a Tuesday. A group of older teenagers were hanging around the edge of the park, throwing bottles at the stray cats that lived in the trash piles. Izuku was carrying an old engine block. He saw a bottle smash next to a small kitten. The snap was instant. The heat flared. Izuku didn't mean to. His eyes flashed red. He dropped the engine block, it cracked the pavement, and snarled. He took a step toward the teenagers, his lip curling back. The intention was pure violence. Maul. Break. Punish. Midoriya! All Might's voice cut through the haze. He stepped in front of Izuku, his skeletal hand gripping Izuku's shoulder. Look at me! Izuku glared at All Might, his pupils slit. For a second, he didn't see his mentor. He saw an obstacle. He hissed. Breathe, All Might commanded. Who are you? Izuku trembled. He fought the urge to strike All Might's hand away. He fought the red fog. I am Izuku Midoriya. I want to save people. I am. Izuku gasped, sinking to his knees. The red faded from his eyes. He vomited on the sand, the adrenaline crash hitting him hard. The teenagers had run away, terrified by the sound of the growl. I almost lost it, Izuku wept. Over a cat. You got angry over injustice, All Might said, handing him a water bottle. That's good. But your response was disproportionate. You must learn to channel that anger, not let it drive the car. Month 5 to 8, the feral state. Okay, All Might said. Time to turn the key. They were in a secluded section of the beach. I want you to draw out the power, All Might instructed. But only a trickle. Think of it like a gas tap. Don't open the valve all the way. Just 5%. Izuku closed his eyes. He found the cage. He visualized the lock. He turned the key just a fraction. The heat flowed out. It didn't burn this time, it hummed. Red lines illuminated on his skin, glowing faintly through his tracksuit. His fingernails grew slightly, turning dark and sharp, but not full talons. His senses expanded. He could hear the crabs scurrying under the sand. He could smell the salt in the air with absolute clarity. Good, All Might said. Now come at me. Izuku moved. He was fast. Faster than a human should be. He dropped low, running on all fours, using his hands to pivot off a washing machine. He lunged at All Might. All Might dodged easily, but he looked impressed. Keep the flow steady. Don't let it spike. They sparred for hours. Izuku learned that feral state wasn't just about strength. It was about sensory processing. He could predict All Might's movements by the shift in the sand and the sound of his muscles contracting. Feral state, 5%, Izuku panted, wiping sweat from his forehead. I can hold it. Excellent, All Might beamed. But remember, the moment you get emotional, that 5% tries to become 100%. Month 10, the apex. The beach was clean. It wasn't just clean, it was pristine. The sunrise glinted off the golden sand. At the center of the beach, atop the final pile of trash that was waiting to be collected, stood Izuku Midoriya. He had changed. The baby fat was gone, replaced by lean, corded muscle. He stood with a new posture, not slouched, but alert. His eyes were sharp, constantly scanning the horizon. He let out a breath, and for a second, his eyes flashed red, then returned to green. Oh my goodness! All Might exclaimed, arriving in his buff form. You didn't just clean the beach, you manicured it. Izuku jumped down from the pile. He landed silently, the sand barely shifting. I'm ready, Izuku said. His voice was deeper, steadier. All Might looked at him. He saw the faint scars on Izuku's hands from the training. He saw the determination. You are, All Might agreed. Here. He tossed Izuku a strand of golden hair. Izuku stared at it. What? I thought you weren't giving me your quirk? I'm not, All Might laughed. That's just a good luck charm. Keep it in your pocket. Izuku's sweat dropped. Oh. Okay, go, young Midoriya. All Might pointed toward the horizon. Go to UA and show them that the beast doesn't make the monster, the choices do. UA High School entrance exam. The gates of UA were imposing, but Izuku didn't feel the same crushing anxiety he used to. He felt alert. His senses were dialed up. He could hear the chatter of hundreds of students. He could smell the fierce sweat, the cheap deodorant, and the ozone of nervous quirks activating. Out of my way, Deku. Izuku didn't flinch. He stepped aside smoothly as Bakugo stomped past. Don't think just because you got a little taller you're not still a pebble, Bakugo sneered, bumping shoulders with him. Izuku felt the heat rise, a reflex. Threat. He took a deep breath. Cage. Good luck, Kaken, Izuku said calmly. Bakugo stopped. He looked back, eyes narrowing. He had expected Izuku to stutter or flinch. The calmness pissed him off. TCH, whatever. Just don't die. As Izuku walked toward the auditorium, he tripped. Or rather, his foot caught a slightly raised paving stone. Reflex. He didn't fall. In a fraction of a second, his hand shot out, fingers brushing the ground to stabilize himself, and he flipped back into a standing position. Whoa! Nice moves! A girl with a round face and brown hair was standing there, blinking. Are you okay? She asked. I was gonna use my quirk to catch you, but you were like a ninja. Izuku looked at her. Friendly. No threat. I'm fine, Izuku smiled. Thanks for the concern. I'm Uraraka Ochako. Good luck in there, Midoriya Izuku. You too. The written exam was a breeze. The beast didn't help with math, but the focus drills All Might had taught him made it easy to block out distractions and plow through the questions. The practical exam. Battle Center B. Izuku stood in the crowd of examinees. He wore a simple green tracksuit. He had discarded the idea of armor or pads. They restricted his movement. He needed to feel the air. He looked around. He saw Uraraka. He saw a tall guy with glasses looking very serious. Start! Present mixed voice boomed from the tower. The other students hesitated. Izuku didn't. The moment the word start registered, the lock turned. Feral state, 8%. Red lines glowed beneath his tracksuit. His eyes shifted to vertical slits. He burst forward, kicking up a cloud of dust. What are you waiting for? Present Mike yelled. There are no countdowns in real battles. Follow that kid. Izuku was already inside the city replica. He was running on all fours, his center of gravity low. He moved like a blur of green and red. Target. A one-pointer robot rolled around the corner. Target acquired. Izuku didn't stop. He leaped. He didn't punch the robot. Punching metal hurts. Instead, he landed on it. His fingers, reinforced by the energy of the mark, dug into the metal chassis like it was cardboard. He located the sensors on the robot's neck. He could hear the hum of the wires. Sever. With a savage rip, he tore the head unit clean off the body. Sparks flew. The robot collapsed. Too slow, the beast whispered. More. Izuku launched off the falling robot, latching onto the side of a building. He climbed the vertical wall, his claws finding purchase in the concrete. From the rooftops, he saw the battlefield. It wasn't an exam. It was a hunting ground. 3 2-pointers below. Izuku dove. He let gravity do the work, twisting in the air. He landed on the first one, crushing it with his momentum. He used the wreckage to spring toward the second. His movements were erratic, terrifying. He wasn't fighting like a human martial artist. He was fighting like a chimera. He spun, lashed out with kicks that cracked metal plating, and used his claws, energy-enhanced fingers, to sever hydraulic lines. Observation room. The teachers watched the screens. That boy. Midnight murmured. He's savage. Movement style is reminiscent of a wild animal, Snipe noted. Look at how he stays low. He protects his vital organs instinctively. He has no combat training, Aizawa said, his eyes narrowed. That's not technique. That's pure aggression. It's effective, Nizu chirped, sipping tea. Look at his score. 45 points in 3 minutes. But does he have the heart of a hero, or just the heart of a hunter? Battle Center B. Izuku was panting. 50 points. That should be enough. The heat on his back was rising. The chaos of the battle, the explosions, the smell of ozone, it was feeding the beast. Kill. Destroy. Dominate. Calm down, Izuku muttered to himself, slapping his cheeks. Stay in the cage. Suddenly, the ground shook. The other students stopped fighting. Debris began to fall from the buildings. From the end of the main street, a shadow emerged. It was colossal. The 0-pointer. It was taller than the skyscrapers. Its massive tread crushed a building like it was made of Lego. It's huge. Run away. That's the gimmick. Let's get out of here. The students turned and fled. Izuku stood frozen. His instinct, the mark, was screaming at him. Predator too large. Impossible to hunt. Flee. Survive. Every nerve in his body told him to run. His legs tensed to turn around. The beast was a coward when faced with a superior force. It wanted to live. Run, run, run! Izuku took a step back. Ow wow! A cry of pain. Izuku's ear twitched. He spun around. Uraraka was trapped under rubble in the middle of the street. The 0-pointer was looming over her, its massive metal hand reaching down. The students were running away. No one else was looking. Run, the beast commanded. She is weak. You are strong. Survive. Izuku looked at the massive robot. He looked at the girl. He remembered All Might's words. Who is holding the leash? Shut up. Izuku roared at the voice in his head. He didn't run away. He ran forward. The mark flared. Feral state, overdrive. He didn't care about the percentage. He pushed the gas pedal to the floor. The red tribal tattoos on his back erupted with light, burning through his tracksuit completely this time. His muscles bulged, veins popping against his skin. His eyes turned completely red, no scare visible. He moved so fast the wind cracked behind him. He reached the rubble pile. He didn't lift it. He smashed it aside with a backhand that pulverized the concrete. Get up! He snarled at Uraraka. She looked at him, terrified. He looked like a demon. Run! He pushed her back toward the exit. The zero-pointer's hand was descending. It was going to crush them both. Izuku turned to face the mountain of metal. He couldn't punch it away. He wasn't All Might. He couldn't fly. He crouched. The energy from the mark concentrated in his legs. The concrete beneath him shattered into a crater. Gra-wa! He launched himself. He was a red missile. He shot straight up, bypassing the hand, running up the arm of the robot. He dug his claws into the metal, tearing his way up the giant machine. He reached the head. The beast was screaming in terror. We will die. Izuku gritted his teeth, blood leaking from his gums. We will win. He raised his right hand. The energy coalesced around his claws, forming a spectral, crimson overlay of a massive beast's paw. Beast style, guillotine, he slashed. 5 distinct beams of red energy ripped through the air. They struck the neck of the zero-pointer. The metal groaned, sparked, and then, with a deafening screech, sheared. The massive head of the robot slid off its shoulders, severed cleanly. Explosions rippled through the chassis. The giant began to fall backward. Izuku was in the air, free-falling. The red light faded. The heat vanished, replaced by agonizing pain. His right arm was purple, the muscles torn from the force of the attack. His legs felt like jelly. He was falling from 20 stories up. I did it, but I'm going to be a splat. Release. A slap across his face. He stopped falling. He floated just inches above the ground. Uraraka was there, sick to her stomach, holding her hands together. Safe. She choked out, before turning and vomiting rainbow glitter. Izuku hit the ground as she released her quirk. He lay on his back, staring at the smoke rising from the decapitated zero-pointer. His vision was blurry. He couldn't move his arm. The other students were creeping back, staring in silence. Did he just decapitate the zero-pointer? What kind of quirk is that? He's smiling. Izuku lay there, broken, bleeding, and exhausted. But a grin was plastered on his face. The beast was quiet. It was sated. He had hunted the biggest thing in the jungle. And he had won. I am holding the leash, he whispered. Then he passed out. The envelope was heavy. To anyone else, it was just paper and a wax seal, but to Izuku Midoriya, it felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. It sat on the low table in the living room, stark white against the dark wood, glowing under the warm light of the lamp. Izuku? Inko asked softly. She was wringing her hands, standing by the kitchen doorway. The smell of burnt katsudon lingered in the air. She had been too nervous to cook properly. Are you going to open it? Izuku stared at the UA insignia. His right arm was in a sling. The doctors at the UA infirmary, specifically a very grumpy, very small old woman named Recovery Girl, had healed the torn muscles and fractures, but the phantom pain remained. She had scolded him for an hour. She called his power reckless, ancient, and a biological nightmare. Your body isn't designed for that kind of torque, Sonny. She had grumbled, smacking his shin with a cane. That mark of yours tries to turn you into a tank without reinforcing the chassis. You do that again, and you won't be holding a pencil, let alone a diploma. Izuku reached out with his good hand. His fingers trembled. The heat on his back was low today. It was a dormant hum, like a sleeping cat purring against his spine. But he knew it was there. He knew that if he tore that envelope open and found a rejection, the hum might turn into a growl. Rejection means failure. Failure means weakness. The weak do not survive. Quiet, Izuku whispered to the voice in his head. He picked up the letter. He didn't tear it. He sliced the top open with a single, sharp movement of his thumbnail, which hardened instinctively for a split second before returning to normal. He pulled out a small metal disc. It clattered onto the table. A holographic projection flickered to life. I am here. As a projection, All Might filled the room, his signature grin stretching ear to ear. He was in his silver-aged costume, flexing against a backdrop of text bubbles. Young Midoriya. All Might boomed. You have waited a long time. I apologize for the delay. I am currently in the process of moving to Japan to teach at UA. He's teaching? Inko gasped. But let us get to the point. All Might leaned into the camera. The written exam? You passed with flying colors. You have a sharp mind, kid! But the practical, the screen shifted. It showed a scoreboard. Villain points 50. 50 points. All Might shouted. An impressive score! You hunted those robots with a ferocity that quite frankly terrified some of the judges. But, the screen changed again. It was grainy footage from the exam. It showed Izuku standing before the zero-pointer. It showed the other students fleeing. It showed Izuku launching himself into the air, a streak of red light against the gray dust. A hero's job is to save people. All Might's voice dropped, becoming serious. And true heroism is found in those who act when others freeze. You possess a power that drives you to survive, to flee, to preserve yourself. And yet, you fought your own nature to save young Uraraka. Rescue points 60. 60 rescue points. All Might declared, throwing his arms wide. For a grand total of 110. You didn't just pass, Izuku Midoriya. You dominated. The hologram zoomed in on All Might's face. He wasn't smiling his trademark smile anymore. He looked proud. You built the cage. You held the key. Now come, young Midoriya. This is your hero academia. The hologram faded. Silence filled the apartment. Inko burst into tears, launching herself at her son. You did it! You did it, Izuku! Izuku sat there stunned. He felt the heat on his back flare, not in anger, but in triumph. A warm, golden feeling of satisfaction. I'm in. The hunting grounds are open. April. The cherry blossoms were falling. They danced in the wind, pink petals scattered across the pavement like confetti. Izuku adjusted his tie for the 10th time. The standard Yui gray blazer felt tight across his shoulders. He had grown over the last 10 months, his frame filling out with dense, compact muscle, but the uniform felt restrictive. It felt like a wrapper he was supposed to tear off. He walked toward the massive glass structure of Yui High, his senses dialed up to a manageable feral state. 2%. It was a trick he had practiced. At 2%, he didn't look different. No glowing eyes, no visible tattoos. But his hearing was sharp enough to hear the whispered conversations of students 3 blocks away. His nose could pick out the scent of rain coming in the afternoon. He felt aware. Students parted around him as he walked. They didn't know why. They just felt an instinctive urge to give him space. It was an aura, a subtle pressure that radiated from him, suggesting that bumping into him would be a mistake. Midoriya! Izuku stopped and turned. Running toward him was Uraraka, looking cheerful and slightly out of breath. You made it! She cheered, stopping beside him. I was so worried. Your arm looked super bad after the exam. Recovery girl fixed me up, Izuku said, forcing a polite smile. I'm glad you got in, Uraraka. I saw your score on the list. Yeah. Barely. She laughed, scratching the back of her head. Then she paused. She sniffed the air. Wow, you smell like really intense wood smoke? Or something burning? Izuku stiffened. The heat of the mark had a scent. Probably my dad's cologne. I must have overdone it. It's kinda nice. In a scary way. She beamed. Anyway, we better hurry. Class 1A is huge, I heard. They walked together. Izuku tried to match her pace, forcing his legs to walk with a human rhythm, suppressing the urge to lope or sprint. Class 1A. The door was massive. It was designed for giants. Izuku stood before it, taking a deep breath. Be cool. Be normal. Don't growl at anyone. He slid the door open. Get your feet off the desk. Ha! Who are you to tell me what to do, Four Eyes? The noise hit him first. Tenya Ida was chopping his hand in the air, scolding Katsuki Bakugo, who was reclining with his feet on the desk, looking like he owned the building. Bakugo turned his head as the door opened. His red eyes locked onto Izuku's green ones. For a second, the room seemed to freeze. Bakugo didn't yell. He didn't explode. He just stared. He remembered the exam. He had heard the rumors. The decapitator. Deku, Bakugo said, his voice low. It wasn't the usual dismissal. It was a question. What are you? Morning, Kaken, Izuku said, walking into the room. He walked past Bakugo. As he did, The hair on the back of Bakugo's neck stood up. It was a primal reaction, the biological response to a predator entering one's territory. Bakugo's hands twitched, small sparks popping, but he didn't attack. He was too confused to attack. Izuku found his seat. He sat down, placing his bag on the hook. You! Ida marched over. I am Tenya Ida from Semi-Private Academy. I must apologize. I misjudged you at the entrance exam. You perceived the true nature of the test while I was blind. It's okay, Ida. Izuku waved his hands. I just reacted. Reacted? A dark voice spoke from the desk behind him. Izuku turned. Fumikage Tokoyami sat there, his arms crossed. The bird-headed boy was staring at Izuku with intense focus. Suddenly, Tokoyami's cloak rippled. Dark shadow burst out. Usually, dark shadow was boisterous. But now, the shadow entity was small, hugging close to Tokoyami's shoulder, peering at Izuku with wide, glowing eyes. He feels like the deep woods, dark shadow whispered, hiding behind Tokoyami. Scary. Like a big wolf, Tokoyami nodded solemnly. My dark shadow is agitated by your presence, Midoriya. You carry the scent of the abyss. Thanks? Izuku's sweat dropped. Ribbit. Tsuyu Ajiri, sitting 2 desks over, turned her head. Her large eyes blinked slowly. I can feel it too. It makes my skin tingle. Like when a snake is nearby. The classroom was murmuring now. They could all sense something about the green-haired boy. He didn't fit. He felt like a tiger that had wandered into a petting zoo. If you're here to make friends, pack up and leave. The voice came from the floor. The class went silent. Lying in the doorway, wrapped in a yellow sleeping bag like a metamorphic caterpillar, was a man with tired eyes and messy black hair. He unzipped the bag and stood up, pulling a juice pouch from his mouth. It took you 8 seconds to shut up, he said, his voice dry and monotone. Time is a limited resource. You lot are irrational. He stepped up to the podium. He didn't introduce himself. He just stared at them. Shota Aizawa looked at the class roster. Then, his eyes flicked up and locked onto Izuku. Aizawa's eyes narrowed by a fraction of a millimeter. He had read the file. Midoriya Izuku. Quirk, Mythic Beast Mark. Type, atavistic/mutant. Threat level high. Aizawa hated wildcards. And this boy, he looked like a grenade with the pin pulled halfway out. I'm your homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa. Put these on and meet me on the P grounds. He held up a blue gym uniform. Immediately, the P grounds. The air was crisp. The students of Class 1A stood in a cluster, looking confused. A quirk apprehension test? The class shouted in unison. What about the entrance ceremony? The guidance counselor meeting? Uraraka asked. If you want to be a hero, you don't have time for such leisurely events, Aizawa said, turning his back to them. UA's selling point is freedom. And that applies to how I run my class. He turned back, his scarf hanging loosely around his neck. Softball throwing. Standing long jump. 50-meter dash. Endurance running. Grip strength. Upper body training. Seated toe touch. Sit-ups. You did these in middle school without quirks. It's irrational. The government refuses to standardize quirk use in fitness metrics. He looked at Bakugo. Bakugo. How far could you throw in middle school? 67 meters. Try it with your quirk. Bakugo stepped into the circle. He smirked, stretching his arm. He glanced at Izuku, as if to say, watch this. Dai! Boom! The ball rocketed into the sky, propelled by a massive explosion. 705.2 meters, Aizawa read from his device. The class erupted. Awesome! We can use our quirks as much as we want? This looks fun. Fun? Aizawa's voice cut through the excitement like a blade. The temperature dropped. You have 3 years to become heroes. You think it's going to be fun? You think you can play games? Aizawa smiled, a manic, terrifying expression. Right. Let's make it interesting. The student with the lowest total score will be judged as having no potential and will be expelled. Expelled? Uraraka cried. It's the first day. That's not fair. Natural disasters aren't fair, Aizawa countered. Villain attacks aren't fair. Power imbalances aren't fair. Heroes are the ones who overturn those unfair situations. He scanned the faces of the students. He lingered on Izuku. Go beyond. Plus ultra. Now show me what you've got. Izuku clenched his fists. The heat on his back spiked to a sharp burn. Lowest score gets expelled. Threat to survival. Must win. The beast stirred. Let me out. I will crush them. No, Izuku murmured. We do this my way. Test 1, 50-meter dash. Izuku was paired against Bakugo. They stood at the starting line. The robot camera focused. Readied. Bakugo's palms crackled. Izuku dropped into a crouch. Not a sprinter's crouch, but a predator's launch stance. His fingers dug into the dirt. Start. Boom. Bakugo flew backward, using explosions to propel himself. Izuku didn't fly. He hunted. Feral state, 10%. His legs blurred. He ran on all fours for the first 10 meters, his spine flexing like a cheetah's, maximizing his stride. He generated so much torque that chunks of dirt flew up behind him. He overtook Bakugo at the 30-meter mark. He crossed the line. 3.04 seconds. The robot announced. Bakugo crossed a moment later. 4.13 seconds. Bakugo skidded to a halt, staring at Izuku's back. Izuku stood up, dusting off his hands. His eyes were glowing faintly red. You! Bakugo gritted his teeth. Since when are you faster than me, Deku? Izuku looked back. Since I stopped running away, Kaken. Aizawa watched, marking his clipboard. Speed is exceptional. Movement is erratic, hard to predict. But he's relying entirely on physical enhancement. No technique. Test 2, grip strength. Izuku grabbed the dynamometer. Crush it. His hand swelled slightly, veins bulging. The metal groaned. Beep. Error. He had crushed the internals of the machine. Whoa! Kirishima peered over his shoulder. You broke it. That was over 600 kilograms easy. Are you a gorilla type? Something like that, Izuku muttered, handing the broken device to a sighing Aizawa. Test 3, standing long jump. Izuku cleared the sandbox entirely. He jumped like a frog, landing in a crouch 20 meters away. As the tests went on, the class began to whisper. Izuku was dominating the physical attributes. He was stronger than Sato, faster than Ida, in short bursts, and had better reflexes than Ojiro. But Aizawa wasn't impressed. He was worried. He watched Izuku closely. Every time the boy used his power, the red tribal marks on his neck glowed brighter. His breathing became heavier. His eyes drifted, tracking movement like a cat watching a fly. He's barely holding it together, Aizawa thought. His adrenaline is climbing. If he slips. Test 5, the ball throw. It was Izuku's turn. He walked into the circle. He picked up the ball. He was doing well. He was in the top 3. But that wasn't enough for the beast. The beast wanted to be first. The beast wanted to show the alpha, Aizawa, who was really in charge. Use more, the voice whispered. Show them the roar. Izuku looked at the field. He could throw this ball into orbit if he used 50%, just this once. To secure my spot, Izuku widened his stance. He closed his eyes. He visualized the cage door swinging open. Feral state, 40%. The air around him grew heavy. A visible heat haze shimmered off his shoulders. The tribal marks ignited, glowing a brilliant, angry crimson. His shirt strained as his muscles expanded. His hair stood on end. His fingernails elongated into black, razor-sharp talons. A low growl vibrated in his throat. Grrrr. The class stepped back. Whoa, Midoriya looks scary, Kaminari whispered. Izuku pulled his arm back. The energy shrieked. He was going to throw it with enough force to break the sound barrier. Power! He whipped his arm forward. Smash! He released the ball. Plop! The ball flew about 40 meters and hit the dirt. It rolled pitifully. Huh! Izuku blinked. The heat was gone. The strength was gone. The redness in his vision had vanished. He felt small. Weak. He looked at his hands. The claws were gone. What? He turned around. Aizawa was standing there. His hair was floating in the air, defying gravity. His scarf was unwound, floating around him like snakes. And his eyes. His eyes were glowing a piercing red. But not the feral red of the beast. This was the cold, calculating red of erasure. I erased your quirk, Aizawa said flatly. Erased? Izuku gasped. Then he recognized the goggles around the man's neck. The erasure hero, Eraserhead. Eraser? I've never heard of him, someone muttered. He's an underground hero, Izuku whispered, the fanba in him surfacing for a split second before the fear took over. Aizawa stepped closer. He invaded Izuku's personal space. That entrance exam was definitely not rational, Aizawa said. You possess a powerful mutation. But from what I'm seeing, you are barely in control of it. Aizawa's scarf shot out, wrapping around Izuku, pulling him close. Whenever you activate that power, your heart rate spikes. Your pupils dilate. You lose higher brain function. I can see it in your face, Midoriya. You stop thinking like a hero and start thinking like an animal. Izuku trembled. I'm trying to control it. Trying isn't enough, Aizawa hissed. Do you know what happens when a hero loses control in the field? People die. Or worse, the hero becomes the villain. Aizawa glared at him. You look like those old tales. Berserkers. Beings of pure rage. If you lose control and maul a hostage, or destroy a building with civilians inside, can you simply say I couldn't help it? Aizawa closed his eyes. His hair fell. I returned your quirk. Izuku felt the heat rush back into his spine. It felt shameful now. You have 2 throws left, Aizawa said, turning away. Get it over with. Then pack your bags and go home. Izuku stood alone in the circle. The class was silent. Bakugo was watching, his face unreadable. Uraraka looked worried. Go home. Failure. Die. The beast roared in his mind. Kill him. He is a threat. He neutered us. Tear his throat out. Izuku clutched his chest. The anger was boiling over. If he let the power out now, he would attack Aizawa. He knew it. His body wanted to lash out at the source of the humiliation. No, Izuku thought. That proves him right. If I act like a beast, I get treated like a beast. I have to be a human. He looked at the ball. I don't need the whole cage open. I don't need the rage. I just need the tool. He remembered the training at the beach. Moving the microwaves. Precision. Focus. Not the whole body. Just the tip of the finger. Izuku picked up the ball. He didn't widen his stance. He stood straight. He took a deep breath, forcing his heart rate down. Thump thump. He channeled the heat. He visualized it flowing like water, past his shoulder, past his elbow, pooling into the tip of his index finger. The mark on his back remained dim. Only the tribal ring around his right wrist glowed. Aizawa watched, his finger on the trigger of his own quirk, ready to erase it again if Izuku snapped. Izuku threw the ball using normal human strength, but at the very last microsecond, snap, he flicked his index finger. The energy exploded. A burst of red shockwaves blasted from his fingertip, hitting the ball with the force of a cannon shot. Boom! The air cracked. A dust cloud erupted from the circle. Izuku winced. His finger was purple, broken from the recoil. The beast's durability hadn't been active on the rest of his body. He didn't scream. He bit his lip. He looked up at the sky. The ball was a twinkling star. Beep. Aizawa looked at his device. His eyes widened slightly. 705.3 meters. He beat Bakugo by 0.1 meters. Izuku turned around. He cradled his broken finger. He didn't look submissive. He didn't look feral. He looked calm. His eyes were green, but the pupils were vertical slits. He locked eyes with Aizawa. He raised his fist, showing the broken finger. I'm still here, sensei. Aizawa stared at him. A slow, creepy grin spread across the teacher's face. Ho! The aftermath. DKU. An explosion of movement. Bakugo lunged from the group. What the hell was that? You were quirkless. You were a pebble. Explain yourself, you bastard. Bakugo was fast. He was going to blast Izuku right in the face. Izuku reacted. He didn't need the quirk. He had the reflexes. He ducked under Bakugo's right hook. He grabbed Bakugo's wrist, using the momentum to flip the blonde over his shoulder. It was a judo throw, executed with sloppy but effective technique. Bakugo hit the dirt hard. Thud. Gah! Bakugo gasped, the wind knocked out of him. Izuku stood over him. For a split second, the shadow Izuku cast over Bakugo looked like a wolf. I told you, Kaken, Izuku said quietly. I'm not a pebble anymore. Suddenly, Aizawa's scarf wrapped around both of them. Enough! Aizawa shouted. Use your quirks in class again without permission and I'll expel you for real. Bakugo, stop acting like a child. Midoriya, go to the nurse. Aizawa released them. He looked exhausted. Oh, and the expulsion thing? Aizawa scratched his head. It was a logical ruse. To draw out your upper limits. Huh? The class screamed. Although Aizawa muttered, looking at the leaderboard where Izuku sat comfortably in third place. If you had zero potential, I would have sent you home. Consider yourselves lucky. He walked away. Izuku let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. His finger throbbed. Midoriya! Uraraka ran over. That was amazing! You beat Bakugo. I barely survived. Izuku laughed nervously, the adrenaline fading. From the back of the group, Todoroki Shoto watched silently. He looked at Izuku's back, where the faint outline of the tribal tattoo was visible through the sweat-soaked gym shirt. That power, Todoroki thought. It's like Endeavor's. Pure pressure. But it's different. It's hungry. Teacher's lounge. Aizawa sat at his desk, staring at Izuku's file. All Might poked his head in. So? How was he? Did you expel him? No, Aizawa said, taking a sip of a jelly pouch. He has zero technique. He's emotionally unstable. And his power hurts him. But? All Might prompted. Aizawa tapped the screen. But he looked me in the eye. He has the instinct of a killer, All Might. A natural-born predator, Aizawa smirked. But today, he chose to be a human. That child. If we can teach him to harness that aggression, he might just become the strongest hero we've ever seen. All Might smiled. The apex, whatever you call it, Aizawa sighed, zipping up his sleeping bag. Just keep him away from the full moon. Or whatever sets him off. I don't get paid enough for exorcisms. The locker room smelled of industrial cleaner and nervous sweat. Izuku Midoriya stood in front of the long bench, his hands trembling slightly as he reached for the metal case marked 18. The number was arbitrary, but the contents were destiny. Man, I'm pumped. Eijiro Kirishima grinned, slamming his locker shut. He was already half-dressed, his chest bare, showcasing gear that looked like rugged red gears. Hero basic training. This is the real deal, right? It is indeed the practical application of our curriculum, Tenya Ida replied, his voice muffled as he pulled a sleek, armored helmet over his head. We must present ourselves with dignity fitting of UA. Students. Izuku didn't speak. He popped the latches on his case. Click. Click. Inside lay the suit he had designed. Or rather, the suit he had sketched in a feverish haze late one night, and that the support companies had interpreted with surprising accuracy. It wasn't the bright, hopeful jumpsuit he might have worn if he had inherited one for all. It was darker. More primal. He pulled it on. The base layer was a deep, forest green compression fabric, woven with carbon fibers to withstand extreme tensile stress. It felt cool against his skin, hugging his muscles tight. Over the torso was a layer of lightweight, black Kevlar plating, segmented like the carapace of an insect or the scuts of a reptile, designed to offer protection without hindering flexibility. But the back was the most important part. The rear of the suit had a panel made of a unique, translucent smart fabric. It was designed to stretch and breathe, allowing the heat from his mark to vent so he wouldn't cook his own internal organs. He pulled on the gloves. They were reinforced at the fingertips with adamantium alloy caps, painted black, looking distinctly like claws. They were designed to help him grip concrete and steel without shattering his own fingernails. Finally, the mask. It was a metal respirator that covered his jaw and nose, painted with a stylized, jagged grin that resembled a wolf's muzzle. It had filters to help regulate his breathing when the adrenaline spiked, and a built-in voice modulator to dampen the guttural growls that sometimes slipped out when he spoke. He looked in the mirror. He didn't look like a knight. He looked like a hunter. A creature built for the dark woods. Whoa, Midoriya! Kaminari whistled. That looks intense. You look like a Spec Ops wolf. It's practical, Izuku muttered, his voice slightly deeper through the mask. He felt the heat on his back, a low, steady thrum. Today, they were fighting. Not robots. Not simulations. People. And looking across the room, he saw Katsuki Bakugo. Bakugo was wearing his grenade gauntlets. He stood with his back to Izuku, but the tension in his shoulders was visible. He was a coiled spring. A stick of dynamite with the fuse already lit. Bakugo turned. His mask was a black explosion of fabric behind his head. His eyes were narrowed. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. The look said everything. I'm going to kill you, ground Beta. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the fake city. It was a labyrinth of concrete and glass, a stage set for war. They say the clothes make the man, ladies and gentlemen, and you are all looking very heroic. All Might stood at the entrance of the monitoring tunnel, his cape billowing in a wind that didn't seem to exist. He looked over the students with pride, though his eyes lingered for a second longer on young Midoriya. Now, we shall begin combat training, Sensei. Ida raised his hand. This is the same venue as the entrance exam. Will we be conducting urban maneuver drills? No, no. All Might wagged a finger. We're moving past robot bashing. Today, we step into the gray zone. Villain cleanup indoors. He pulled out a script card. The scenario is simple. Villains have hidden a nuclear weapon somewhere in the hideout. The heroes must go in and secure it, or capture the evildoers, within the time limit. The villains must protect the weapon or capture the intruders. He held up a yellow box. Teams will be determined by lottery. Izuku swallowed hard. Please don't let me be paired against Kaken. Please. My heart can't take it. The beast can't take it. He reached into the box. Team A. I'm Team A too. Uraraka cheered, holding up her ball. She looked like a pink astronaut, bubbly and round. Looks like we're partners, Deku. Oh. Great. Izuku relaxed slightly. Uraraka was grounding. She was safe. First match. All Might announced, reaching into two boxes. Heroes. Team A, villains. Team D, Izuku froze. Team D. He looked across the crowd. Bakugo held up the ball marked D. Standing next to him, looking stoic and prepared, was Ida. Bakugo slowly lowered the ball. A cruel, predatory grin spread across his face. It wasn't a smile of joy. It was a smile of anticipated violence. Fate has a cruel sense of humor, Izuku whispered. Everyone else, head to the monitor room. All Might commanded. Team A and Team D, you have 5 minutes to prepare. Villains, go inside and set up. Heroes, wait at the perimeter. As Bakugo walked past Izuku, he leaned in. He smelled of nitroglycerin and burnt sugar. I'm going to expose you, Bakugo whispered. I'm going to strip away that fake quirk and show everyone you're just a pebble. The heat on Izuku's back spiked. It was sharp, painful. Threat. Izuku watched him walk away. His hands curled into fists. The alloy claws creaked. Deku? Uraraka asked, concerned. You're sweating. Like a lot. I'm okay, Izuku lied. He touched the respirator on his face. Just stay behind me. The strategy. The building was a 5-story concrete shell. Inside, on the 4th floor, Ida paced around the papier-mâché bomb. Bakugo, we must coordinate our defense. Ida insisted, chopping the air. This is a simulation, but we must treat it with gravity. Midoriya and Uraraka are formidable. Bakugo stood by the door, staring at his palm. Formidable? Bakugo scoffed. She's a floater. And he's a bug. He threw a ball 700 meters, Ida reminded him. He destroyed the 0-pointer. A fluke, Bakugo spat. He's hiding something. He's been laughing at me this whole time. Pretending to be weak. Watching me from behind. Bakugo turned, kicking the wall. I'm going to crush him. You guard the bomb. I'm going hunting. Wait. Leaving your post is terrible strategy. Shut up, Four Eyes. Just don't let the girl touch the nuke. Bakugo stormed out into the corridor. Outside, Izuku and Uraraka stood before the blueprints of the building. Okay, Izuku said, his voice shaking but his eyes focused. Kaken. Bakugo. He's going to come for me. He won't care about the objective. He has a lot of pride, and right now, that pride is hurt. So he's going to ignore me? Uraraka asked. Most likely. He sees me as the only target. Ida is diligent. He'll stay with the weapon. Izuku pointed to the map. We go in. When Bakugo attacks, and he will attack immediately, I'll intercept him. Uraraka, you use your zero gravity to float yourself up the ventilation shaft or the stairwell. Go straight for the weapon. Leave you alone with him? Uraraka frowned. But Deku, he looks really mad. I know, Izuku said. He felt the beast pacing in its cage. It was sniffing the air, smelling the impending conflict. But if we fight him together, we lose time, and in a tight corridor, his explosions are devastating. All right, Uraraka nodded, putting on her helmet. But don't die, okay? I won't. Hero team, enter. All Might's voice boomed over the speakers. Izuku and Uraraka slipped through the window on the first floor. The interior was dim. Dust motes danced in the shafts of light cutting through the boarded-up windows. The air was stale. Izuku dropped to a crouch. He didn't walk, he prowled. Sniff. Concrete. Mold. And sweetness. Get down! Izuku tackled Uraraka just as a figure exploded from around the corner. Boom! A massive blast of fire and smoke filled the hallway. The wall beside them disintegrated. Izuku rolled, shielding Uraraka with his reinforced back. The heat washed over him, feeding the mark. Found you, you stalker! Bakugo emerged from the smoke, his gauntlets smoking. He looked demonic, his eyes wide and bloodshot. Kaken! Izuku scrambled to his feet. Uraraka, go! Izuku shouted. Uraraka didn't hesitate. She touched her own chest, made herself weightless, and kicked off the wall, floating rapidly down the adjacent corridor toward the stairs. Bakugo made to chase her, but Izuku stepped in the way. Get out of my way, Deku! Bakugo swung his right arm. A massive right hook. Izuku knew this move. He had seen it 1,000 times in the playground. He had written about it in his notebooks. Bakugo always starts with a right hook. Duck. Izuku dropped low. The gauntlet whooshed over his head. Grab. Izuku reached up. His hand locked onto Bakugo's forearm. He didn't use his full strength. He didn't want to break Bakugo's arm, but he used enough. He pivoted. Using Bakugo's momentum against him, he slammed the blonde into the concrete floor. Wham! Gah! Bakugo coughed, the wind knocked out of him. I know your moves, Kaken! Izuku yelled, backing away. I've been watching you for years. Not to mock you, but because I admired you. Bakugo lay on the ground for a second, staring at the ceiling. He grabbed me? He threw me? The pebble? Bakugo scrambled to his feet. His face was twisted in pure rage. Sparks flew from his palms uncontrollably. Admired me? Bakugo screamed. Don't give me that crap. You think you can analyze me? You think you're better than me? He launched himself forward. I'll show you. I'm the one who's gonna be number one. The observation room. Whoa! Bakugo is going nuts. Kaminari said, watching the screens. Is that even allowed? He's using live rounds in there. Bakugo's movements are sloppy, Aizawa muttered, standing in the back corner. He's fueled by emotion. Midoriya is calm. He's anticipating. But look at the power difference, Kirishima pointed out. If Midoriya takes a direct hit from those gauntlets, he's toast. All Might gripped the microphone. Young Bakugo, your pride is your greatest weapon, but also your heaviest chain. The fight. Izuku was retreating. He ran backward down the hall, dodging blasts. Boom. 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 The explosions were deafening. Each one sent a shockwave through Izuku's chest. Loud. Too loud. The mark on his back was throbbing. It wasn't a gentle hum anymore. It was a drumbeat. Thump, thump, thump. His vision was starting to tint red at the edges. Stop running! Bakugo roared, using an explosion to boost his speed. He closed the gap instantly. He kicked Izuku in the stomach. Oof! Izuku flew back, hitting a pillar. The breath left him. Before he could recover, Bakugo was there. He grabbed Izuku by the collar of his suit, and slammed him against the pillar. Where's that big power, huh? Bakugo screamed in his face. Where's the finger flick? Or are you too scared to use it on me? He raised a glowing palm to Izuku's face. Fight me, you coward! Boom! A point-blank explosion. Izuku barely turned his head. The blast hit the side of his mask. The metal scorched. The strap snapped. The mask clattered to the floor. Izuku slumped against the pillar, smoke rising from his hair. His ear was ringing. A high-pitched whine that drowned out the world. Warning. System critical. Alpha threat detected. Containment breaching. Izuku opened his eyes. They weren't green anymore. The pupils had collapsed into razor-thin slits. The iris was a glowing, bioluminescent crimson. The heat on his back exploded.